Imagine this. When you speak the truth about your darkest chapters, your story becomes the light someone else has been praying for. Every episode is a declaration of survival. Together, we tear down silence, crush stigma, and amplify voices that refuse to be forgotten. Thank you for being with us today. Your presence truly makes this moment meaningful. I'm Jennifer Lee, founder of The Healing and Sharing, host of the I Need Blue podcast, author, keynote speaker, and a survivor who turned pain into purpose. God called me to use my story and share my voice to create this special space just for you. To learn more, visit ineedblue.net. I must share a trigger warning. This podcast includes discussions of trauma, violence, and sensitive experiences meant to empower and support. Please prioritize your well-being and remember there is strength in asking for help. A heartfelt thank you to my beautiful friend Melissa Turi for creating the opening melody. To hear the full-length song, stay tuned till the end of the episode. And to learn more about her incredible journey, visit melissaturimusic.com. Her information can also be found on ineedblue.net. Now let's begin today's story. We're shining a light on a truly inspiring woman from Melbourne, Florida, Jennifer Cleveland. Jennifer grew up on a farm in Georgia where her love for animals, especially horses, first took root. At 21, while studying nursing, a horseback riding accident left her with a shattered leg, forcing her to leave school and spend 9 months unable to walk. Determined to recover, she turned to the gym for strength and rehabilitation. Through that journey, Jennifer discovered a deep passion for health, healing, and movement, which led her to become a personal trainer, helping others grow stronger. 10 years later, she followed a new path to Florida and became a paramedic. Working in a level 2 trauma center, Jennifer faced life and death situations daily. Those intense experiences shaped her, teaching her how to hold space for pain while still offering hope. But life wasn't done teaching her yet. While she was saving lives, something was quietly slipping away: her vision. Over the course of a decade, the world grew darker until she was declared legally blind. Alone, overwhelmed, and defeated, Jennifer reached a breaking point. But instead of giving up, it became her breakthrough. In the quiet of that darkness, she found her light in God and a powerful truth. Her life wasn't falling apart. It was unfolding exactly as it was meant to. Today, Jennifer shares that light through her work as a yoga teacher, licensed massage therapist, and Thai yoga massage practitioner at Inner Sight Living. Her journey is a testimony of resilience, surrender, and the strength found in trusting the unknown. Jennifer, thank you for being my guest today, and welcome to the I Need Blue podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate
it. Of course. I'm so glad you're here and we finally connected. You know, I truly believe that the right time will present itself, and here we are.
Yes, absolutely. I believe it.
So, like we talked about in the introduction, you grew up on a farm, and not everybody can say that. Would you like to share some fun and also hard lessons that you've learned from growing up on a farm?
Sure. The really cool thing about growing up on a farm is we learn a lot of survival skills, a lot of critical thinking. We get to do things that other people don't do. I learned how to drive when I was 8 years old. I could drive a boat, I could drive a go-kart. Um, as I had to get a little bigger to be able to drive the tractor because it actually takes physical strength to drive a tractor, or it did back then. Some of the tractors are like fingertip now. I could drive my dad's truck, motorcycles, everything. And just doing that at such a young age gave me confidence, but also gave me critical thinking skills. I was a dead eye shot by the time I was 11 years old. We grew all of our own vegetables. And I learned what hard work was, and I learned how to accomplish things because we would pick our vegetables. My stepmom and my dad would send us out into the field at sunrise, and we couldn't come back until we had a full bucket. And then we had the full bucket, we had to shuck them or peel them or whatever it was that we were collecting. We had to then prepare it so that we could store it or eat it. There's so many people these days that don't even make their kids do basic chores, and they don't have problem solving skills. They don't have conflict resolution. They don't have critical thinking, and the slightest thing that goes wrong in their life, they lose it. And I think that having a life like that helped me to develop those skills that gave me the ability to get through some of the challenges that I met later on in life. And of course, between my parents were divorced. My dad had the farm, and my mom was a professor at the University of Georgia. So I grew up in the university town. So I had these two different lifestyles, and those were great. So I kind of had it all, as a child. Yeah.
Okay, horses, I'm going to tell you, first time, and maybe only time actually, that I was on a horse was in Colorado. I was 12 up in these cliffs, and my horse stopped, scared the crap out of me because I'm in the mountains looking down and I'm like, oh, like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I always wanted a horse, and my dad told me if we moved out into the country, because we had a house in town, but if we moved out onto a farm, that I got to have a horse. And so we did. So I got my first horse at 11, and it was wonderful. I mean, riding around the farm and just going into the woods and being able to do what we wanted. And it was another form of transportation, but also the neighbors had horses. So it was just a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And then, of course, the skill of learning how to care for a horse, and also, again, the critical thinking skills, the motor skills that are involved that I developed because of riding horses, and that survival that comes along with it in the woods. Yeah, and that relationship with the horse is very different than any other animal, because if you have a horse that you ride, you become one. And there's only the only other relationship I can kind of measure with that is the guide dog. But it's still different. It's a different relationship. But yeah.
Talking about the horses, our relationship with our animals, after a matter of years, you were out riding your horse and found yourself in an accident. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so this is my second horse, and she's never bucked before, but started bucking one day, and I got bucked off. And my hair was always long, and I had it pulled back in a ponytail, but I didn't have it tied up. So when I turned around to look to find out where the ground was, because you want to know where the ground is so that you can tuck at just the right time and roll. And I couldn't see the ground, all I saw was my hair. And my leg got under me and it shattered my leg. I had to have surgery. I couldn't walk for 9 months. And yeah, that was hard. I think I was like 21 or 22, something like that. I didn't have any of the skills. I didn't have any of the vision that I have now, of understanding life and things like that. I was so young, and it was the first taste of what was going to happen to me when I became visually impaired. I remember how I had, friends, and I called them and told them that I broke my leg and I was in the hospital and I wouldn't be able to walk for months and all that. I remember a couple of them said, "Oh, that's too bad. Well, hey, when you're all better, call me and we'll go out," kind of thing. And I never heard from them again. And, I had a couple, of course, my best friend, Christy, who I'm still friends with now, she stood by me, and others, a couple, but most people just disappeared. They disappeared. And that's the same thing that happened when I became visually impaired.
Emotionally, What were you experiencing?
In that, when I shattered my leg, it didn't really bring out any of the good qualities in me. It made me sad and kind of bitter and like, why did they do this? Like, what, why kind of thing. I didn't have any insight into what was going on at that young age. I mean, I know a lot of people do, they're a lot more advanced than I am, but at that point, I didn't. It was more like, let me survive this and come out the other side rather than I'm going to thrive through it and come out a different person and be a better person and learn lessons, which is what I try to do now. But back then it was more like this is a huge inconvenience and everything's terrible. you know.
Yeah, like, why me? Oh my goodness, you know? But this also then influenced your trajectory in life, and you started to go to the gym. You're like, "I gotta heal. I gotta get better," right?
Right. So I was going for nursing school and I was in the program and that's when I shattered my leg. I had to drop out of school. We didn't have online or anything like that. That didn't exist. So that was it. I had to drop out. And, after not being able to walk for 9 months, your whole body changes. So once I could walk again, I had to get my strength back. I had to get my health and wellness back. So I joined the gym. That's the first time I've ever done that. I joined a women's gym and started working out. And then I started getting results and I was really into it. And I kept going to the manager because she had trained bodybuilders. And I said, okay, tell me what to do next. So she'd write me up something next and she'd show me and I'd go do it. And then I'd come back, okay, now what do I do? And I was really advancing with my body and my curiosity. And she liked that. So she offered me a job as a beginner trainer. So I just trained the beginners as they came in. And then I was the next level up trainer. And then she offered me the job as the athletic director. So I was over all of the trainers. And I actually became the athletic director before I even went and did a personal training certification because she trained me on everything. And I got educated by her and the other trainers and by other forms of, just research and things like that. And then I finally went and did an actual certification, but it didn't really matter for that gym. It didn't really matter. So it led me down like a different path and I didn't go back to nursing. And then when I decided I was ready to move out of the area that I was in, I didn't want to go somewhere that I didn't know anyone. And my brother lived down in Melbourne, Florida, and he really liked it. So I moved down to Melbourne and I became a trainer. I became the morning manager of a gym, athletic director of a gym down here. And I did that for a while until I didn't want to do it anymore. And I decided I was going to become a paramedic. So I became a paramedic. Next lifetime, became a paramedic. So all like health and wellness.
I was gonna say there is a trend with you, the health and wellness, but also it's making people feel better. So not only did you find a way to help yourself, but then you found a way to also help others, and that's beautiful.
Yes, and so what I figured out now at 52, sitting here, going through all of those things, even more after becoming a paramedic, is everything was preparing me for the next step. Everything was. So the shattering of the leg was preparing me for when I became visually impaired. Being a personal trainer was preparing me for the next step of becoming a paramedic. Becoming a paramedic was preparing me for the next step. Everything was, laying down the foundation and the groundwork for what I'm doing today. And I'm sure what I'm doing today is preparing me for what I'll do in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
Absolutely, and you already used the word curious once.
Yes.
Curiosity is a great thing, and I'm excited to see where even my platform and everything goes in 5 years, and I'm excited for you to see where everything goes as well. It's amazing.
Yeah, who knows? Don't make a plan because just as soon as you say, "Oh, this is what's going to happen," then God says, "Aren't you cute?" Because it's like, no, there's the plan. The best thing to do is the doors that open for you. This is my recommendation. The doors that open for you and feel good and resonate with you, walk through them and take advantage of whatever they have to offer. Do those things, even if they don't make sense. Do those things and then wait for the next door to open and walk through those. Don't fight the river. Don't try to swim upstream with the stuff that you're doing. Get in the boat and ride that river. Wherever it takes you, ride it. And then take advantage of whatever it is you're learning, whatever you feel like pulled to, look for the opportunities. And if it's right, it'll open up. Something will open up. You shouldn't have to like I don't think, claw your way too much, maybe some, but it'll work if that makes sense. Like whatever you do is going to work. And then you're just going to keep learning those skills and gathering those tools for your toolbox, which will take you to the next level and the next level and the next.
Everything you just said is what I have been experiencing on a different level for like the past week, which just justifies the fact that you and I are having this conversation because you're just reinforcing, like, yes, Jen, follow the path, surrender. Surrendering is hard, isn't it? And
It is.
yes, it's like you said, trusting the unknown, but like you said, go with it. Don't try to swim upstream. Gosh, I love that you have shared all of that.
Yeah, I had 2016 was a really bad year for my family. My brother lost two children. My stepfather died and my uncle died all within 6 months. It was tough, right? So I ran into a nun, and I was trying to figure out what I needed something. I felt like I was doing everything I could. Like I was getting body work every week. I was doing acupuncture. I was taking herbs. I was meditating. I was, doing yoga. I was talking about it if I felt like I needed to talk about it, and being quiet if I felt like I needed to be quiet. The body work is huge. Like when you go through trauma and grief and stuff, you got to move your body and you got to get body work. It's going to get stuck in there. It gets stuck in there and you get pain, you get disease. It holds on. We got to flow it through. So I was doing all of that, but then I felt like this knot building up as we were approaching the holidays. I felt this knot building up, like it was just going to explode out of me. I was like, what can I do? And nothing was working. Right. And then I ran into this nun. I'm not Catholic, but I ran into this nun, and I was like, and I immediately was like, she's got the answer, you know? And so I went over to her and I said, I need to see you. Will you come see me? And I gave her my number, and she called me and she came to see me. And I told her what was going on. And she told me to repeat to myself 10 times a day, I surrender to you, Jesus, take care of everything. And she said, do that 10 times a day. Okay, well, I started doing it all the time because my mind wouldn't stop, right? It just wouldn't stop. And so every time I'm vacuuming, I surrender to you, Jesus, take care of everything. I'm doing my dishes, I surrender to you, Jesus. Anytime I wasn't speaking or doing something specific where I had to have focus, I was saying that out loud or in my head. And that changed everything. That released that block, that released that energy, and it just gave my body whatever she needed so that she could get over that next hump of grief.
Wow, yeah, that is a lot of grief for sure. Were you able then to share that message with your family, like with your brother?
Yeah, I did. I shared it with them. I share it with anybody who needs to hear it. My clients, of course, my friends. And it's not always I surrender to you, Jesus. It can be something else. But find something to replace the ruminating, the cycle in your mind that is driving you down or keeping you down. Find something to replace it. And I'm big in faith, and whatever faith it is that you're drawn to. But Jesus is my teacher, so it resonated with me.
Absolutely. And by sharing that message, there are many people out there that you will say that to that need to hear it. They just don't know they need to hear it.
Oh yeah. Well, it's like me. I didn't know I needed to hear it. So yeah, yeah.
You hear it, and then you surrender to what the nun asked you to do. So good for you. If it's okay, because also part of the podcast is I love to honor our first responders. And you had worked in a level 2 trauma center. And you talked about having to basically hold space for pain while also maintaining hope. Do you mind taking us into that world?
But that was an interesting world. I mean, they make television shows about it. It's nothing like you can imagine. It's always shocking when I kind of tell people exactly what it's like, even in the television shows, which I don't watch because I actually lived it. So, but it's still not the same. I was really surprised, and this may be different depending on the area you live in, but I only worked in one emergency room, and it was or one emergency department, and it was here. It was a trauma center, and I was really amazed at how hostile everyone was towards us, the staff. you know, um, and it wasn't always the patient; it was usually the family members or the friends that were with them. And I have never been spoken to like people speak to you. And it's different and it's interesting the energy. Like if it's the paramedics bringing them in, like on the road, like when I worked on the road, people were much nicer and much more appreciative, even though, and this is the reason I didn't want to work on the road, is because you really don't do that much. You have maybe 15 minutes with them. There's just a few things that you can do, and you're really never sure if you did the right thing. If anything you did helped or if you did the wrong thing. You don't know. You might come back to the ER and say, "Hey, how was that patient that I dropped off?" And sometimes they would call in and say, "Hey, how is that patient? Did I do the right thing?" But that didn't happen very often. They usually just dropped them off and went on, because we had other things to do. But then they're with me for 12 hours and we're actually figuring them out. We're doing tests, we're figuring out what's going on with them, we're treating them, things like that. And they would come in from the ambulance with a good attitude or partially good attitude sometimes. And then they would immediately flip and become mean to us because they say like the burnout is really like about a year and a half in an emergency department. And that's why it's just the abuse that we took from the general public when we're trying to help them. It was challenging, of course, to watch people die and to watch people suffer and to not be able to stop it. That is difficult. But what made it so much more difficult was how cruel the people would be towards us, the staff. I remember one time it was crazy. I was working in like the critical area. So the paramedics in this emergency department, we support the nursing staff and we support the doctors. So we kind of run from emergency to emergency. And when one would come in, we would assess them quickly and see what needs to be done, and then kind of go to the next. So, and then if we didn't have an emergency, one after the other, then we could go around and help with other things, right? I'm going around and it's now 1 o'clock and I was supposed to go to lunch. I think I was supposed to be an 11 o'clock lunch and I didn't have lunch. I hadn't gone to the bathroom. I had peed in like 6 hours. My bladder's about to pop and I'm starving. I'm like, I'm going to lunch. I can't take it anymore. I'm going to lunch. And I'm telling everybody, well, then a chest pain comes in the door. And in a chest pain, you have to do an EKG on them within 5 minutes because it could be a heart attack. And if it's a heart attack, you got to treat that very quickly. So a chest pain comes in and I know where that nurse is that has that bed. She's not going to be able to get in there and take that chest pain. So I ran into the chest pain. I was going to go do the EKG and draw the blood real fast so that I can then go to lunch and not leave that nurse in a lurch and take care of that patient. And as I walk in the room, I'm Jennifer. I'm going to do an EKG, check your heart, and I'm going to, draw some blood. Can you just tell me your name and date of birth so I make sure I have all the correct information? And she looks at me, and this is like a 60-something-year-old woman. She looks at me, and then she turns and looks at her friends and goes, "See, they're so fucking stupid in here that they don't even know who their patients are."
Oh my goodness.
That's how they talk to us all the time. And I just looked at her and I was just like, and this is after like 5 years. And so I'm like over it. And I just looked at her and I said, "You know what? You came to us. You can leave. Would you like to check out? I haven't had lunch. I haven't gone to the bathroom. This is my lunch break. And I've decided to come in and take care of you. But this is how you speak to me. Would you like to check out? You don't have to be here." And she, oh, and I said, "Tell me, because I can leave. What do you want?" And she's, "No, well, I do need to be here." Okay, then you're going to change your attitude and talk to us. And she didn't say anything else after that, but she was just had this look of disdain and everything on her face. But that's how they talk to us. And that's why we got burned out so quickly. I was a different person then than I am today. Like I could react quickly because I was used to being spoken to like that on a regular basis and treated that way on a regular basis. And I'm not used to that now. But yeah, it was like that. It was, it was dealing with that on top of picking a mother up off the floor whose child just died. But yeah, just as soon as you think you've seen it all, something else comes through the door. It's crazy. We always kept talking about, we need to get a notebook and every day just write something, that happened down in the notebook, the new thing, write it down in the notebook, and then every year publish it. But we never did. We never did.
And I'm so glad you shared that because when I think of mental health for first responders, it's because of things that you've seen or had to deal with. Like you said, the mother who just lost her child, you have to pick her up off the ground. But I never thought about the mental and emotional abuse that would come from a patient.
Yes, I manage that kind of stuff better, like when the mother lost a child, because I have a deep spiritual belief, and even then, when I wasn't as, in touch as I am now, I still had a deep connection. So I knew that everything was okay. I knew the child was in heaven, everything was fine, everything's in divine order. My job then was just to show up and hold space for her and help her still feel seen and heard. And same thing with others, when you get a life-changing experience, just to show up, hold space, make them feel seen and heard. Like, my big thing was, when they would come in on a backboard, they can't see you. So I would always lean over them and smile real big. Show my smile real big and be like, "Hi," and look at them like that and smile. And they would always smile back. No matter what was happening to them, they'd always smile back because they could never see you and it's scary. And that's what I would do. I would try to always do that when I had somebody like that. But for me personally, and from what I could tell, it was just being overworked, not enough staff, being overworked, being mistreated by either the patients or their family members, the people that were with them. And then when I left, by the time I left, it was like the nurses were just taking a beating. I mean, they were really being overworked and being blamed for a lot of things that were not their fault. It's complicated.
So now looking back, this 5, 6 years is preparing you for what is to come next.
So in 2009, I became legally blind. It was a process over about 10 years of my vision diminishing, and they weren't really sure why. I went to Baskin Palmer in Miami, the number one eye institute in the United States. I saw the number one retina specialist in the United States. She couldn't figure it out. She tested me for everything. She couldn't figure it out. But my vision just kept getting worse and worse. And then one day it got so bad that I couldn't do my job anymore. And so I had to go on medical leave. Then it kept getting worse and I couldn't come back off medical leave. So I had to resign. And that was extremely difficult. I did not know that there were I didn't know any other visually impaired people. And I also didn't realize there were any services in the area, which is strange because I did work in the hospital. So I should have thought, hey, let's call and try to figure out if there's more services. There's got to be services, right? And then also I worked with social workers, and not a single one of the social workers, they knew what was going on, but none of them said, hey, there's organizations in town you should sign up for. So it was a year before I found out about any of the services in the area. And that year was hell. It was really bad, because I went from being this fast moving paramedic in a level 2 trauma center, constantly being challenged, thinking fast, moving fast, everything, to sitting at home on the couch doing nothing. And I had just gotten married. My husband wasn't that great, wasn't that supportive. And then the same thing happened when I shattered my leg. My friends started disappearing. And some I never heard from again. When I went out and became visually impaired, a few people would, message, hey, I haven't seen you. Let's get together for lunch. And I say, okay, I would love to, but I'm blind now, so I can't drive. So I'll need you to pick me up. And I never hear from them again. Or I would go out with people and they would have to read the menu or they would have to guide me. And it was too much work for them or too much trouble for them. And the public would respond in a negative way. One day we were we were having dinner and I set my glass down and I was apparently like at the crack, like they apparently put tables together. And I set my glass on it and it spilled. And the waiter was like, "Oh, you're cut off. You're drunk. You're cut off." And I'm like, "No, I'm blind." And people at the table got kind of were uncomfortable about all of that because there's now conflict and attention being drawn and things like that. And then after about a year of suffering, that's when I became suicidal. And I called my mom and I was like, something's got to change. So she was worried and she called my dad, who was a member of the Lions Club. And to this day, I don't understand why he didn't think of this, but he said, call the Lions Club in the area. And mom called the Lions Club in the area and we found out about the two organizations, Brevard Association for the Advancement of the Blind and the Center for the Visually Impaired. They offer free training and support for the visually impaired in Brevard County. So I signed up for both of those programs, and that's what changed my life and pivoted me on the path that I'm on now. So first thing, I went to independent living class at Brevard Association for the Advancement of the Blind, and I met other people who were just like me. There was actually another woman in her 30s, just like I was in my 30s. She had become legally blind, and everything that was happening to me was happening to her. Every single thing that people were telling me, they were telling her. So it gave me some comfort and some camaraderie. And I felt like, okay, it's not me. It's not me that's the problem. I'm the blind lady. It's not me that's the problem. I signed up for classes with the Center for the Visually Impaired, and they come out to your house and teach technology training, independent living, and orientation and mobility. I got my first white cane. That was a dramatic day because once I got my white cane, I was now the blind lady. And that was something that was never supposed to happen. I was never supposed to be, that was not my plan to be the blind lady. And once I got my white cane, now everybody knew I was the blind lady. And I didn't understand like the full benefit of it, which now I was like, I won't go out without it because it tells you that I'm the blind lady. And therefore, if you do something around me, I can't see you. It gives me that extra layer of protection that I didn't really think about when I was fully sighted. We think it makes us vulnerable. We think it makes us all whatever. But what it does is it just gives me a little more protection. It helps me to see because you use it tactily, you use it to give you information about your environment, but it also tells your environment who you are and what you need.
It gives you some empowerment within your environment.
Yes, because walking with a sighted person, forget it. I mean, I've been ran into so much stuff, poles, chairs, other people, tripped off of steps, things like that. And with the cane, yeah, you can still be guided by the sighted person, but the cane gives you that buffer and gives you more information about your environment. So it's less likely for something like that to happen.
Can I ask you, because as I sit here and think about the slow progress of me eventually losing my sight, like the anxiety that must cause and the depression, the basically like when you were 21, why me? Like, why is this happening? How did you cope with that and get to where you are today?
So it was a lot of help and a lot of tools and a lot of steps. As I was working as a paramedic and losing my vision, there was a lot of fear and depression along with it. And then when I did become legally blind and lost my job, my dream job, lost it, and was now just sitting at home doing nothing, there was a lot of depression, a lot of anger. I went through the 5 stages of grief, right? And in the 5 stages of grief, you're up and down, and you're fluctuate from one to the other. You go from sadness to anger to back and forth. So I did all of that. The next step was I think I needed to experience it. I needed to go through that because I could have, the universe could have provided those organizations for me the day that I became legally blind, but it didn't, right? God didn't provide it then. I had to go through it for a year first. And I think part of that was the purge to get rid of the people and to lift the veil on a lot of things. And also, we need to dig deep. We need to dig deep. And the best thing to do, I think, is to dive down into those feelings. If it's grief, go for it. Go for it. Get in there. Be sad, scream, cry, do all the things. And then because you can't that's why we're here. That's why we came to be human, is because we want to feel the contrast. We want to feel that. We can't do that on the other side. We want to feel the contrast that we have here as a human being. We have the joy, we have the grief, we have the happiness, we have the sadness, we have the pain, we have the pleasure. We have all of that in this human body. And I think that's why we come here, is to feel it. So feel it. And so I did that. And the next step is find the organizations that help. Find the people who have been there and have done that. Not the people who don't know, they never done it. Okay. I had so many people try to tell me how I should feel and what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing, and they've never been visually impaired. Oh, they don't even know anybody who's visually impaired. Or maybe they do, and that person sits in the corner all day, which is unfortunately what happens to most. Don't talk to those people. Find those people who have been there and they have done that and they have come out the other side successfully, or they're working on coming out the other side. Find those people. Those are who you need to talk to. Those are who you need to hang out with. Those are who you need to call when you're up or when you're down. And then start taking steps. So focus on finding the people that can help you. Focus on getting your body stronger, physically, your mind stronger. So what did that mean for my mind? I started doing meditation. I started studying spiritual teachings. I was Buddhist for like 2 years, and it was fantastic. And it gave me the tools that I needed, because Buddhism is all about working on yourself and challenging your thoughts and your words and your actions, recreating a new reality. Stop the bad stuff so that you can advance and level up and move forward. So I had to stop the negative thinking. I had to stop all the anger. I had to stop those things, and that took time.
So, a matter of years ago, you had met the nun who gave you the message about surrender, and you said it every day. Now that you're in a new situation where you are legally blind, did you find yourself still relying on that same belief of surrender, or were you standing there like, well, okay, God, I surrender. What is this all about?
Yeah, so in the beginning, it was, why me? Why me? Why is this happening to me? And then it became, why me? Hmm. Why is this happening to me? What am I supposed to learn? And then what, after I learn it, what am I supposed to offer? Because eventually I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I think if we look at our lives, is there any time in our lives that we changed our whole being without having to be forced into it? Probably not. We probably had to be forced into everything. There are very few of us who are wise enough and advanced enough to say, okay, this is not a good idea, so I'm just going to cut that off at the bud. No, we let it bloom. and then and then we just go down that path, and then we're forced into another direction. So that's what most of us do. That's what everybody in my life does. And that's what I've done. I just had to be forced into it. I had to get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I had to learn those lessons. And I use that now, when I work with visually impaired people, and I kind of try to befriend them. I coach them, like, okay, this is what's happening, this is what you can expect, and this is what you need to do. I give them that information that nobody gave me. I give it to them and tell them, this, it's okay, it's to be expected, and this is what's going to happen. This is what you'll probably feel. So it's okay. And then you're going to come out the other side and you're going to be fine. It's going to be a different life. It's going to be different. As long as you put in the effort and the work and do your part, you can create a good life.
Absolutely. And this journey then took you into another new journey where you found another way to help people. And that brings us to where you are today.
Yes. So as I was doing the classes with the Center for the Visually Impaired, I had completed the classes with the Brevard Association for Advancement of the Blind, but I was still going back and volunteering because I needed that connection. I needed it. And that's when I started, like, I can do this. I can do this. Yeah. And so they're very strategic with how they teach you. They start you out basic, and they know that it's going to be overwhelming, and you're going to be scared, and you're going to cry, and you're going to be all the things, right? So they start you out really small, really basic, and then they're like, okay, you mastered that. Now what do you want to do? One thing after, okay, now what do you want to do? And what's next after this? And so with my teacher, Karen, we finished, I don't remember what it was. And she said, now what do you want to do? And I said, you know what? I've always wanted to learn how to sew. And I never sewed before on a sewing machine. And she's like, okay, well, we need a sewing machine. We need this, we need that. So I found a sewing machine at a garage sale, and I bought it. And then I scheduled classes with her, and I started sewing. And I made my stepdaughter at the time a cute little outfit. When I got done with the outfit, I didn't really want to sew anymore, but that gave me the confidence and the desire to do the next thing And that was when I started to say, you know what? I think I want to go back to work. But I didn't know what that looked like. I couldn't be a paramedic. There's no way I could be a paramedic. So now I'm doing spiritual development training at Aquarian Dreams Beachside here with Sherry. And so I went to Sherry and I said, what do you think I should do? I want to work. And she said, oh, you're supposed to be a yoga teacher. I mean, like nothing, And I'm like, huh? I've taken 7 yoga classes in my whole life. And she was like, no, you're supposed to be a yoga teacher. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And so I go back and I go to my teacher, Karen, and I said, so I think I'm supposed to be a yoga teacher. She's like, that's a great idea. And she said, let's find the best training that we can find for you. So we found the only training in the area, but it was a Yoga Alliance, which is the national certification in the United States. And I signed up for that, did the yoga teacher training. It was quite the experience as a visually impaired person because a lot of people are really wrapped up in the aesthetics of yoga, and I didn't have any of that. So I got to have a much different experience. But I completed my yoga teacher training and I started teaching at Aquarian Dreams. The challenge there was nobody else would hire me. Everybody thought I was a liability. And then another studio hired me, and then another one, and then another one. And eventually they all hired me. And then I started teaching specialty classes all around the county and doing some private yoga. And that was great. And I felt good doing that. But then I wanted even more. I was like, now, okay, what's next? Something next. So, right? Everything's preparing me. Everything's preparing me, right? I've always been drawn to Thai massage. No idea why. Never experienced it in my life. There's nobody in the area that does it. And then a Thai massage training came to town. I signed up immediately. And I did the Thai massage training. It was a 5-month training. And then I started offering Thai massage to my female clients, my friends. That really gave me more of what I needed because what I noticed that a lot of us are craving is safe, healing touch. And the Thai massage gave me the ability to do that. Then I had all these massage therapists and yoga teachers wanting me to teach them how to do Thai massage. And I could teach them, but I couldn't give them credits because I wasn't a licensed massage therapist. So I went back to licensed massage therapy school, graduated, and became a licensed massage therapist. And now I'm a continuing education provider for the state of Florida for Thai massage, licensed massage therapist, and also a continuing education provider for yoga teachers. But what makes me good, I think, at teaching yoga and also Thai massage and everything is everything that happened to me before. The shattering of my leg and realizing how that at that age and at that mindset, what my mentality was and what it feels like to come back from that. And then being a personal trainer and an athletic director, and then being a paramedic gave me the medical knowledge and also gives me some credit, like some street cred, right? Because a lot of people look at yoga teachers and they're like, oh, but the fact that I was a paramedic in a level 2 trauma center gives me some cred. So that's good. And so that prepared me to understand complications with health that people have. And then the next crazy thing that was never supposed to happen was because I started doing public speaking. Because of all of this, and because I didn't want anybody to suffer the way I suffered with not having the care and the services and not knowing what they're entitled to and also not knowing what they can do, I reached out to the Center for the Visually Impaired and asked, how can I help? Well, they wanted me to do fundraising and raising of awareness. So I started putting on fundraising events for them, and I started doing public speaking. My biggest public speaking was to NASA. I was a keynote speaker at NASA. But I spoke into little organizations like the Rotary Club, everything, telling them about what it's like to be visually impaired and telling them about the services in the area and what people with disabilities need in general. I believe teaching yoga, getting me up in front of a group and teaching, that took away my nerves in front of people. That taught me how to speak in front of people. And that prepared me for my public speaking gigs. Everything is like, just go for it. Just what is the universe? What opens up? Okay, this feels good. You've got doors opening up. Go ahead and walk through them and see what they have to offer because, I was that 21-year-old girl laying there angry because my leg was broken and all my friends left me. And then next thing you know, I'm the keynote speaker at NASA. So, you know, you don't know, but find your tribe, find your connection to God, whatever that may be. Um, there, I believe we're all climbing the same mountain. It doesn't matter if it's what belief it is, just find your connection and take care of your body, be really healthy and take care of your body. If we learned anything over the past, since 2020, take care of your body, be healthy.
Absolutely. I was gonna ask you a closing question, but you may have actually just answered it. You were talking about the lessons you learned while living on a farm. Remember, that's how we started our conversation. And I was thinking to myself now, a few decades later, what lessons have you learned from life?
Oh God, so many. Be careful who you talk to. Be careful who you share your energy with. I remember spending time when I lost my vision trying to get people to understand how I felt, and they'll never understand. Only sharing that energy with people who have a desire to understand. I know people who they share their dreams, like I'm going to open a business, and then the next thing you know, you've got all these poo-pooers, and they're poo-pooing their energy all over you. They don't need to know. Be careful who you give yourself to. You're sacred, your energy is sacred. Be careful who you talk to, be careful who you share your energy with. And don't take advice from anybody, who hasn't been there and done that, who hasn't shown you something like that. I love that saying, a bodybuilder will never put you down for going to the gym, but the unhealthy person sitting on the couch playing video games will shame you for it. Just talk to the people who have been there, done that. As soon as they start to show you that they're not going to be that person, just zip it.
That is such great information. Love your thoughts, love your heart, love your journey, love your resilience, love your spirit. I feel like I can just keep going. And to the audience, I want you to know that all of Jennifer's information will be in the show notes as well if you want to reach out to her. Um, on that note, Jennifer, thank you for being my guest today on the I Need Blue podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I appreciate you doing this.
Some days are better than others. Wake up and you put one foot in front of the other. Same routine, same places. You just keep on pushing through it. The life you led before, putting everything on the line. Not sure if you would make it home, leaving it all up in God's hands. Just happy to see the sunrise again. Baby, lay those worries on my shoulders. It will always be okay. You have me to hold. Listen to the silence in the dark. Let it guide your way. Hear my beating heart when you're wandering, lost and afraid. You got my hand, so take hold and lean into me as I lean into you. I'll pick you up, take the pain away, mend all the seams to your scars. I'll heal you from your own thoughts. Dance in my arms, close those eyes. Imagine nothing but the soft light, stars and the moon, releasing everything. Let me be your armor, shield, and you, keeping you safe, making you bulletproof. Baby, lay those worries on my shoulders. It will always be okay. You and me to hold. Listen to the silence in the dark. Let it guide your way. Hear my beating heart when you're wandering, lost and afraid. You got thoughts that keep you up at